to do with those tossed salad and scrambled eggs. I think this is live. Hey, everybody. I'm
We're
Evan
definitely live.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, welcome. You've discovered the pirate feed of the Motion Design Hotline. I'm Evan Abrams.
Getting weird.
It's weird to think that it's weird. Joined here as usual with my co-host, the pro host with the co-host, Kyle Hamrick.
Are we showing up on the Behance here?
I don't know. It's impossible to tell sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like I don't see it yet, for what it's worth.
It says live, good,
Okay.
and a number.
Okay.
Try refreshing harder.
I've refreshed. I've refreshed. There it is. Okay.
Okay.
I believe you now.
Maybe you could refresh. That's your third refreshing. And we are here to clean up to freshen up our fridges by cleaning out these leftovers, Kyle. We're going to deal with our paint bucket overfloweth, I suppose. So we must continue. There's not a lot of people hanging out right now. Do we want to take a moment and just tweet at people about this show?
I was about to do exactly that.
Okay, and I'll do the stretch for time.
Okay.
Hold on. There's a button where I can just hit the share. That's probably something. Copy this.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, yeah. People enjoy our faces.
Watch us in real time as we learn about Behance sharing features.
I don't know, people.
Look, there's no time limit today, so we can do 15 minutes of this nonsense at the beginning, and it doesn't really matter.
No one can stop us. And if we wait long enough, the Adobe Live feed will end, and people will be forced to observe whatever we're doing. The leftovers. How long do you think before we do a holdovers episode? Not a lot of visual effects used in that particular program. But we'll see. This
is good television right here.
Yes, it is. Anyway, folks, here's what we're doing today. For the last couple of weeks over on Adobe Live, we've been doing paint over effects, painting, paint the fence, Daniel San, up, down, etc., wash car. But there are some things we didn't get to very well, so we're going to try to continue on with those. If you have any questions about what you see us doing, or questions about what you hear us saying, or smells that we are making, you can ask us about all of those. But we're happy to get at you in the chat, try to help you out. I figured, Kyle, I'll go first since that's how we decided things before the show.
You know what? We have at least a few people here, so we could have them vote.
That's true.
I vote that you go first, but we. So Evan has this technique that we saw just a little sneak peek of at the end of the last show. We kind of ran out of time to showcase everything, so
true.
I think that's a good place to start. But if anyone has, just very strong objections, this is the time for you to voice them, and we can ignore them.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're team Kyle and want Evan to go first, vote Kyle. But if you are team Evan and don't want that to happen, still vote Kyle.
Okay, so let's see the votes.
Yeah, if you want Kyle to go first, vote Kyle. And if you want Evan to go first, i.e. what Kyle wants, vote Kyle.
We'll know what you mean.
Yeah, we will know. All right, people. It's hard to parse what we're talking about on the show a lot of the time. Here's what we are doing. Let's have a look at those anime glasses, those sick anime glasses.
Yes.
That is this one over here. Here it is in its beautiful vertical alignment. Looks like this. What phone number do you dial in to vote? We could set up a voice.
Well, let's just give everyone your phone number, Evan.
Sure. Yeah.
What could go really well.
There was a long time when I had my Skype number, when that was important, in my email signature. That was a mistake. That led to some real bad times for Evan Abrams. So, here we go. We got some gleams. This is your classic anime type of deal. And all we're doing
on real footage?
That's right. on a real human, his power level must be over 9,000. And you can tell just by looking at this gentleman that his power level is pretty high.
I want to point out we have Leo hanging with us over on YouTube. Asked an extremely astute question. They requested a phone number that they should dial in to vote.
Yeah.
And I said 1234567 because, I think Evan's phone number would be good. But Leo makes a good point. Isn't this the hotline after all?
Yeah.
And you have exposed our lies. We do not have a big red telephone anywhere that's just waiting to be picked up with your motion design emergencies. I'm sorry to have to pull back the curtain and disappoint, but
there is a we could have like a 1-900 number
that rings both of our phones.
Well, it could just be an answering machine and people could leave us voicemails. We could do that. So think about it.
I'm going to think. I mean, there's a world where we could set up a Google Voice number or something and literally let people leave voice messages. But remember about a month and a half, 2 months ago, where we did a promo for podcast promos where we were making fun of the fact that we're going to use an audio medium to describe a very visual. Yeah.
I see where you're going with this. You're saying if people can't screen share, then it's going to be totally worthless to us.
I mean, the concept of people leaving us voicemails describing the thing that they're trying to achieve in an animation software sounds interesting but tedious.
Yeah. So send us clips of what you're talking about instead, and you can voice over that. Speaking of, here's a gentleman on a phone, and he is having a good time. So
ring, ring.
Yeah, ring, ring, ring on the telephone. So the point of this whole thing is, oh boy, drawing things by hand is not fun. Therefore, how do we not do that? How do we not have to do this? There are sort of two phases to making this work. Step one, you need to track something. Now, tracking can be done in a lot of ways, but when it comes to this footage, I'll just grab the original footage and drag it over here. It's made very simple because this gentleman, I don't know what detail this is on glasses, this kind of like bejeweled little part here, these fascinators on the side of your glasses.
Let's call them bejewelies.
Yeah, so you got these bejewelies over here, and you can use those because they have really high contrast with the points around them. I think they're a little bit opalescent, so maybe not, and like the gleam on this is not going to be particularly good. But what you want to do is get the bejewelies or something that you can track to. So if we wanted to put something on the glasses, we want to track that. If we want to track the hand, we want to get something on the hand that we can grab a hold of. If we want to put something on the side of his face, then we want to track something over there.
Yeah. You're looking for high contrast and something that's, distinct.
Yeah. And then we call open our tracker window, tracker, track motion. And you need not just a 1 point, but you need 2 because we're going to want the rotation and scale to do this. Now, before we get too far down the line, as I keep kind of moving these little bits around, there are a lot of other cool and good tracking solutions. So we have Mocha AE that comes packed in with our After Effects. Mocha AE is great for tracking planes. So this gentleman's glasses are a plane, right? Ostensibly, it's a flat plane, unless these are like wraparound shades, in which case you're running into more trouble, but plane nonetheless. So this is one way that we can get data from this. You want to make sure that your inside point.
Careful that you guys didn't realize that this was going to be so dangerous.
Evan's lifetime of smoking and drinking has caught up with him eventually. Curses. So you want to make sure that the inside feature is large enough to encompass the actual thing that you want to be tracking. And then you just track them on forward. Whee! Now, I want to go here to some of these bumps that you see. So any type of head motion might bounce this thing out, but I think it did a pretty good job. We might need to clean that up. Thankfully, like all good cooking shows, I've already done this once. So we can just go ahead and close down this and enjoy this version. You probably want to stick like a null or something on with, use the tracking data for that. So in the tracker themselves, you can pick the motion source that you want to send, or sorry, the target is what you want to send things to. Whoop. So anime glasses, we're in here. Tracker, track point, you edit target, you send it out to one of those. Once you do this, you will then have a null that follows along and does the stuff. Which is
big plus one from me as well for using a null, because that way you kind of get that intermediate thing. A lot of times if you're trying to track some other specific object, to give it that exact data might not put it in the right spot. So being able to use a null and then parent your thing to that null, it just gives you some extra layers of adjustability.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is like you can keep the raw data in here. So all the important data is in here. And then if you need to like delete some points or smooth some points or massage the data in some way, like things like rotation, big spikes in rotation are really felt in a big way when you start to composite stuff. So you may need to kind of mush those down. Anyway, all of that to say, it should take you, maybe half an hour, maybe less to get a reliable track on some stuff. I hope. I don't want to set unrealistic expectations for people.
It depends on the clip.
Yeah. But if it's taking you
10 seconds.
If it's taking you more than half an hour, you need to rethink what you're doing.
Burn it down.
Rethink what you're doing. But also, you have to realize that with tracking. So I tried to use planar tracking on his glasses, right? It didn't work. It didn't work super good. Why? Because there is a gleam in the glasses that really confounds stuff. The actual lighting, going over the shiny surface, confounding things. But if I
might suggest that this is completely counterproductive, but I bet if you rotoed out the lenses, you would probably get a great planar track on the glasses as an object.
Yeah, I tried to do that. It did not. And it's totally down to the way the gleam warps over the thing. Because it warps unevenly, it really confuses various automatic trackers. So maybe you have to do things manually, yada, yada, yada. However, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with a stable null out there somewhere in the world. Then we need to make some gleams and stick them places. Let's talk about gleams. So
very musical today.
I am. I'm. The spirit is moving through me. The spirit of music. Come on now. Why is my effects controls not populating with all of these great effects?
Well, why would it?
I know. Black Solid 2, please. Call it up. Okay, Kyle. Now, you tell me if you guessed how this was going to go. So I started with a gradient ramp on a solid. All right. From there, I applied the colorama over top of it. And I do that because colorama allows you to phase shift the input phase. So the input phase is just being, phased along. I'm
Clever.
Just using a time expression on this. So it creates this. Now I've taken interpolate palette off. If you have that on, it looks like this, which is pretty nice too. But now I've got bars moving across the screen, right? You could do this any number of ways. There's heaps of ways to get bars moving across screen. I did this one because now I can interject a curves in between, and it looks like this.
I like this. That's smart.
So all that's happening is I'm mildly compressing the values. And because I'm shifting, if I'm phasing the values, if we interpolated the points, it would look like this. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Which in itself, kind of interesting.
Yeah. And if we interpolate them, we get these bands that are like thick, thin, like that. So anyway, just an interesting procedural thing to think about, that because we're converting and compressing stuff, we end up with that. Then I dropped a little transform effect on it, which gives us a shear.
Over the shear action, yeah.
And you can do that, again, many ways. I've chosen to use transform shear. Next, got to get some waves, right? You could do waves before you transform. You could do it after. It really doesn't matter. And in this case, we get some wavy waves going across. I put some turbulent displace because I didn't want them to be perfect waves.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I put a bulge in the middle because these are glasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how you end up with this final effect. Kyle, you're probably thinking, Evan, the edges of that are nasty as heck. Don't worry, we're not going to see them, right? This is one of those times when you're putting stuff together. You got to realize that all you're really going to see is like a middle quarter of this thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Everything else is pretty superfluous. We are really overhanging the edges, and it's going to allow you to be a lot looser with what you're doing.
Quick little question from Leo over on YouTube. Is there a difference between a shear or a skew? And honestly, Transform has skew. I misspoke and said shear, but I believe there is a shear, maybe CC shear effect that is similar, but ultimately, I think, in this case, since you're just sort of offsetting a little bit, whatever gets you there.
I mean, language-wise, I think they are synonymous. And I think if we put this behaviors wiggle shear on, it's using the skew to make that happen as well.
I think, isn't there an effect that's just a standalone shear or skew? Which seems a little unnecessary since Transform does it, but...
No.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Shear.
Umacorn's suggesting it is different in Illustrator, so maybe that's the language difference here.
Right. Yeah. You got skew axis, you got shears. Maybe it's about clipping. And the other problem is that everyone uses the language to be totally different.
Well, why don't I just shear this discussion right off and you get back to what you're doing?
Thank you, indeed. Prune down these hedges. So, like I say, we got nasty edges, but we don't care, right? That's not part of our lifestyle. Back in here, what we're going to do, if I just solo the gleams, and I'm going to take their track mat off so that we stop looking at that. They are literally just parented to the null. So they're going to follow where the null goes. And if we get the footage back under that, you can see, oh yeah, that's looking so good. Tee-hee-hee. The magic really comes when we mat them down. So we want to make sure that this rough stuff goes inside of something. And there are a few ways to kind of do that. But I really just need to get the inside situation of the glasses. That can be achieved pretty simply by getting a solid out there, parenting that to the null, drawing the paths on it, and that'll give you at least one good frame of this. And then you may have to make some tweaks to the actual shape of those masks. Not as many as if you rotoed this stuff by hand, really. Well, I guess technically I am doing it by hand, but I'm kind of downplaying it because it's not as extreme as it looks with all of these. These are just little micro adjustments going through every so often. Like, all right, it's fallen off here, it's fallen off there. And sort of being aware that, again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're trying to emulate a kind of hand-drawnedness. As long as the perspective of these doesn't get totally blown out or wackadoo, it's going to be fine. So then we can use that as a track mat for our two gleams, and that will do it up for us. You could use, say, the roto brush to get the areas that you need. So if we were, say, having like tattoos go across this guy's hand, right? We would probably use the roto to get the hand or the fingers or wherever it needs to be encapsulated inside so that we can be rough and janky with the outside edge because we're going to get a perfect edge from the roto. So that's why we kind of get away with a lot of this stuff. So after that, it's really just a matter of compositing them down. So these gleams are being set to add. There's a bit of a glow on top of them. I'm using an adjustment layer here to just clamp down on the subject. I did want to talk briefly about something that I considered, but then threw in the trash of using the cartoon effect on this, which I think...
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about, when we were planning these paint shows, of the ways that you can do paint-y type looks procedurally, and we weren't in love with most of them.
No, we truly not. So I'm just going to reset the cartoon effect to its kind of base level stuff so we can kind of have a little look. So if you wanted to do this with like the fill stuff, really what we're doing is we are posterizing the stuff.
Hmm.
And if I just kind of bring the shading steps and the shading smoothness down, you can see as I bring up the shading smoothness a little bit on this. Come on, a little bit more than that. Keep it going. There we go. And we start to see that it's really just posterizing and then blending. And if we have, say, 8 or so steps on here, like, yeah, this kind of looks like Waking Life. Is that the one? Keanu
Uh,
Reeves?
well, Waking, um, a Scanner Darkly, but
Yeah,
there was a movie before that that had done
yeah.
where the
But
same director used the same technique.
yeah, but and they're doing full on roto on that. Like
Yeah.
they're they're harming human hands to make that art. So don't worry. But this, it doesn't look great to me. Like I don't dig this kind of deal. Even if we posterize the thing and the edges, so the edges situation is really just the find edges effect type of deal that's being put over top. And there are some other adjustments to it, but it's very
Hmm.
similar to the find edges. And then, you can do the combination of the two of them. The cartoon I find works best when you actually really limit what's coming into it.
Yeah.
And that gives you a way more controlled color palette, a way more interesting kind of response. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I actually prefer it if I just crunchitize things with the curves and put a tritone over it into our branded colors. And ultimately, I ended up taking this thing and applying some posterized time and some more glow on top of it, just so I can get some more interesting
Hmm.
glowiness happening from this. But once you have a track on a surface and you have that rotoed or masked or however you're going to do it, alpha, if you've got the track and you've got the alpha, now you can put things on the surface however you ding dang please, right? That is the sandwich that you need. You need those ingredients if you're going to make this thing. And if you can get them, however you do it, whether you're using the tracking of Lockdown, for example, or maybe Mocha's mesh warping technology. Is there another Lockdown type thing? Another mesh warping thing?
I mean, those are the big two,
Yeah.
definitely.
But that'll give you like so lockdown and mesh warp will give you a deforming mesh of points. So if it is like a tattoo that you want to animate on someone's arm or something, like that is the way to do it because
Mhm.
that's going to flex and bend based on the properties there. You could also to get the roto situation. I played around a little bit using just a mask, so you can just take like a mask and we'll say like I was going to mask this gentleman's fingies, so I'll just go ahead and boop pop beep pop. If this was like the patch that I was going to put that on,
Hmm.
you can go ahead and use your tracker.
That's a great looking mask, Evan.
I nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you can track this mask kind of into shape, and you can see that it actually follows him pretty well.
Because
Look,
it's a like the visuals inside that shape don't change much. So
yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
but if he was opening his hand, we'd run into a whole mess
Yeah.
of trouble. So, in those instances, still you can use some tracking, but just know that you'll have to make tinier bites. Like you would probably need to make one mask around this part and one mask around this part, and then it'll eventually build up into an entire fingy. But it takes time, and if you don't have time, then track roto, put the stuff in, try to create keyframed whatever it is that you are producing, and comp it on top. People will think you're very, very good at this stuff. I'll think you're very good at this stuff, and it'll be a good time for everyone involved.
And if you really don't have time, that's when you use the cartoon effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if we were to apply the cartoon effect over top of this now, maybe
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe let's try it.
like it starts to feel like a lot better because we've already made the image less
Hmm.
real. So, it's a much more limited color palette. We've simplified the visual information enough that it's grabbing onto the stuff that we really want it to grab onto. So anyway, some massaging required. Oh boy, I've talked for long enough, Kyle. I'm going to relinquish
Good.
screen power back to you here.
All right. So ostensibly, we're talking about paint techniques today. Our last two shows were doing a variety of ways to incorporate painting into your animations. And obviously, what Evan just did was a very procedural, arguably like a very cartoony kind of look.
Yeah.
But you can get a lot of those with frame by frame painting as well. So just in case you folks didn't see this last week, this is one of the examples that I made. And I showed you this workflow last week, but I can kind of touch on this again this time. But what I did here is imported a 3D model into After Effects and essentially built my shots, my little edit there. And then I used Fresco with a little pass through Photoshop to do the actual painting. So this is actual frame by frame hand painted situation here. But it works. I think it's a pretty fun thing. Obviously, this one was kind of time consuming because this was like 99 frames. Yeah.
Right.
But my little skate guy that I did was much shorter, and he was only 30 frames. But you can see it's a very similar technique here. In this case, I did roto this guy, and the hands are on green screen. So in both of these examples here, I have an object on an alpha channel, and I'm painting behind it. So I don't need to be super accurate, and I was more going for that kind of like loose, punk rocky kind of vibe here. So honestly, unless I get any questions about the paint stuff, I'm going to spend a little time showing this 3D model in After Effects, which I know is less paint related, but I think that's it's a new thing that we just got access to about 2 weeks ago now. And I think it creates a lot of really interesting potential, especially if you like this kind of style. I'm definitely going to make some more dinosaurs with it. I just need to find some more animated dinosaurs. So
yeah. And so while you're doing that, since we are talking paint overs, we can use all of the painting over techniques that you've seen us use, previously. Like if you're going to use the brush tool, for example, you can deploy that on a comp, right? Which could be one of these 3D models, right? So if you wanted to, I just need the 3D model to reference what I'm painting, right? That could, as a very valid use of stuff, because that's how a lot of things are kind of figured out in terms of like proportion and foreshortening. We've had a question in our mailbag about foreshortened characters for a very long time, right? Which we have not gotten into because it is so specific and traditional animation-y that it has not behooved us to explore.
That does give me a good thought, something that I will explore in a second with this dinosaur, though. Although, Evan, I will say I feel like my display might be lagging behind a little bit, so we'll see if that's a problem, and if so, we'll deal with it.
Okay.
So I just have a blank composition here, but I want to point out that I am in After Effects beta right now, which this little test tube is your giveaway. Boop, boop. Any of you can download the beta.
Your interface is like spot on. It's not. It looks super normal on my side.
Yeah. But that's what tells you what's in the beta. The UI is a little bit different now, by the way. So coming into proper Adobe Substance? Spectrum's the word. So you will notice the design, the UI design is a little bit different, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about this super exciting 3D model with animation import. So I have this model right here. It's a T-Rex, and let me size that guy down. I brought this into the project pretty large, and so I have to size him down a fair amount. And you'll see, yep, 3D model, pretty sweet. But what's really cool about this is that it has, I just really made my life difficult. Good example of why you want to make sure you bring your things in at a workable scale, because you can see I'm at 0.8 on my scale of this dinosaur here, which makes it not super easy to work with. So what was I talking about? Oh, this is animated, but just by default, like, nothing's happening. Well, this model, any model that comes in with animation, is going to have this little thing called name. And then you can select, let me pull this up just a little bit here. You can select, this model has a couple of animations built into it, and they're selectable, which is really cool. So you just bring in the one thing, and then you say what you want it to do. So here's the run animation. Boom, 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 boom. There he goes. And it will loop when you get to the right time frame there. And he's got a bite. So let's move him over so you can see that. And you know what? This is one of the things I love about this. Like, oh, I really like that, but I wish he was facing more like this way. Oh, well, now he is. Or, you know, facing up a little bit so you can really like have him come into frame and get that. Like the creative possibilities here. I didn't create this model. I just downloaded it for free, and the link is available on our project files, which are, of course, always available at motiondesignhotline.com.
A real website for real people.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting, like when you get into compositing 3D stuff, that, yeah, the angles, like, because what does this guy have to do? Well, we're having a celebration and we need the dino to bite the sale sign, right?
Right.
Like, well, okay, so...
And then yell like, it's a sale!
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
50% off, clever girl.
That was one of the Raptors.
Yeah. They're
legally
learning.
Required to point out.
They're learning to take advantage of APR financing.
Oh.
Now, Kyle,
Yes.
you'd probably know this. Were they Jeeps in the Jurassic Park? Like Jeep brand Jeeps?
No, I think they were, I want to say they're Ford Explorers.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just pause the show for a second and make sure.
Look.
Vehicles in Jurassic Park.
Look, this is important stuff. We have
It is. Boy, this is going a little deeper than I thought.
Yeah, okay. Apparently, so Ford Explorers and Toyota Land Cruisers in the novel.
Okay, I was right. Yeah.
But utility Jeeps used by park personnel. Interesting.
The film version is a 92 Ford Explorer XLT.
Sick. Good. So if you have a
Okay,
Ford
good.
Explorer XLT, please go ahead and get that paint job done to your car right now.
I assume that there are a couple people driving around in... I mean, that was before the era of these like silly, like licensed car things. I remember there was like a Rogue One Nissan Rogue that came out with that movie, and they had a black one and a white one in case you want to drive around in a Stormtrooper.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, obviously this is super cool as we kind of pointed out. Like, you know, clearly you need a model that is built with the animations that you need in here, but rather than providing a baked down animation, you could give, if you were working with a 3D artist, they could give you this animation here and give you some ability to move this around and scale it in your shot and things like that you would just never get from a flat export image sequence or whatever.
Yeah.
And that versatility is super cool because you can see here for mine, I did this setup shot where he's running towards you, he or she, they, it. And then I did a little duplication here. Tyrannosaurus, get it? So I needed multiple and like they were singing. So I used two different shots here and kind of did some looping. In this case, did some time remapping on that animation so that I could kind of expand that, and it's already a little cartoony and silly anyway, so it works just fine. One thing I want to point out though about all of this, let's go with that roar because that's a nice. I bet this will position itself nicely in the frame here. Yeah. Okay. So we've got this roar, and we can do all kinds of rotation like you saw. Now remember, here in After Effects, with these imported 3D models, you can also use environment lighting. Ooh. And that works with these also. So I'm going to create an environment light. Sorry, I did it with a hotkey, but you can also right click, new light, and then you can choose environment light here. And this is going to, there's just a default one that's kind of like a, photo studio setup, but you can plug in actual environments to this as well, which we've done on previous episodes. And these have the ability to cast shadows and all that. And this works on these animated models. Now, my GPU is going to start chugging a little bit with this, and I just saw myself lag out in the in our broadcast here. So I might be a little judicious about my use of this, but check this out. So that here's with the environment light, here's without, and you can already see a pretty big difference. There's a bunch of internal shadows that this creates on the model. And then remember, you can, even with just this default light, you can flip this around. And check this out. I really like this. Yeah, look at that. What a vast difference. Like how suddenly terrifying this got. It went from being kind of like cartoony and shiny here, and now it's this underlit thing, and it really plays up how big this dinosaur is.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to suggest, you can drop a camera in and give it a more extreme, like.
That's exactly what I was going to do. We were talking about the foreshortening, but I'm going to go ahead and turn off this light because I can still see myself lagging in our call. Right. I think there's a lot of GPU going on here for an animated model plus the environment lights. So maybe I'll turn that back on in a second. But let's create a camera, and let's just call it a 50 millimeter to start here. And let's go ahead and turn this sucker here so we can kind of get it roaring like right at us here. We're kind of, oops. See if we can kind of get like a person's perspective on it, right? Okay, so here's our camera. And we know that we can use our camera tools to, well, that's not going to work great there. But what if we open this camera back up and start playing with that focal length? What if we go way just super short here, and let's zoom in, and we're going to get this really extreme, like cartoony, even that's too much here, but I bet that we can find a nice middle ground here, even just like a really wide angle, maybe 20 or 24 here. Let's see, you can get, let's maybe rotate down just a little bit. I'm just kind of trying to like really get, really see down the throat and just see like how scary you can make this thing. Whereas, so let's call this our wide camera, and I'm going to make another camera and set it back to the 50 here, nifty 50. And so there's a 50, there's the wide angle. Obviously I moved the other one a little bit too, but you can really get a huge difference. I'm a big fan of using cameras, even on stuff that isn't like particularly 3D, to create like really extreme angles like that. You can get some really neat effects. So don't forget about that as just one of your little tricks.
Yeah, I mean, you could even, if the camera isn't doing it, you could just like stretch it along one axis to get really crazy and distorted if people really want to do like, I don't know if people really appreciate how much of the like distortion of a thing is like, oh, that's why it feels so good and weird.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? I'm going to go back to this. I see some of the folks in the chat also appreciate just how doofy this made everything. So I'm going back to this.
Yeah. And for comping stuff together, like we need to be able to manipulate a lot of those details. If you had to render it out of a 3D thing and then put it back in here, that's going to be
right.
Bummer.
Look at just how much flexibility we had compared to just the creative difference here between this and this, like, worlds apart, and you can manipulate all that here in After Effects. Even if you were just using this for previs and then you went back to your actual 3D software to make sure you get like the beautiful render you're after.
Yeah.
Although, like, honestly, I'm going to spend some time playing with this later, and maybe put this in an environment. Try to match it like nighttime underlit. That looks pretty awesome, I must say.
And it can take EXRs now, right? That was in the last update.
You can feed it HDRs or EXRs as the environment lights.
Okay.
So yes,
Yeah. EXRs being, I think, the more common file
yeah,
that I usually
yeah.
deal with
HDRs
anyway.
are a little wonky to create. They're kind of specific. Um,
Radiance.
Yeah. So, especially for folks who weren't watching last week, obviously I haven't touched anything paint here. But if there's an aspect of this workflow that you want me to dig into, please ask. Because I did kind of show how you get this over to Fresco cleanly last week. I can show you that again real quick if you want. Or just kind of point out some stuff in the Fresco file, or um, Evan, if you have any sort of workflow requests for either of these two.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to see kind of just I think do the fresco like getting into fresco again
Hmm. Okay.
because that is something that I don't think like
It's
getting
kind of specific. Yeah.
yeah
Okay.
getting the image sequence into Photoshop and then into Fresco. I think could be a helpful refresher for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Make sure
Okay.
that we hit that a couple of times.
All right. So if you will indulge me for just 1 second, I'm going to switch over to sharing my iPad.
Okay,
Um,
I'm gonna
and
get primed on the button to switch to the iPad.
rhyme it. Okay. Here we are, and this is just this is, I don't know, probably 2 generations ago iPad. It's not the super fancy one, and I am using an Apple Pencil, but also it's a couple generations old, and I can do all kinds of fun stuff here in Fresco, and I really love just how much. Obviously, these are still computer created brushes, but like you get some really nice stuff in here. It just looks very organic. Like, look at that little smear on that first vertical. Like, look at that. I love it. Whew. Um, and just since I'm in here, I'll point out. I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but man, if you need elements for something that look hand painted, make yourself a white layer that fills up your screen. Make yourself another layer and make that one black, and then like all your little hand painted arrows or custom letters or whatever, just do them in here and screen capture them, and they're going to look so much more organic than anything that you're going to create in After Effects,
Yeah, I think
even with
like
our amazing setups that we did.
true, but there's great like bleeds and
Yeah.
spreading of the kind of inky wet wet
Hmm.
brushes. I'm going to avoid saying wet brush on here, but
Yeah, yeah. The watercolor stuff is super fun, but it's a little can get slow if you do too much of it. So, what I want to do to get my video file into Fresco here, I need to create an animation layer in my Fresco file so that there's a container for it to go into. Okay. So I'm going to just make a 1 here. And then down here, bottom right corner, I'm going to click this little, I'm kind of clicking it on and off here. I know you can't see my cursor necessarily. Um,
kind
but,
of.
well, here, I guess you can see my screen cursor
Yeah.
that isn't on the iPad. So there you go. So I'm going to enable the animation for this, and then I'm going to make another frame by clicking that little plus. And I mean, I'm just doing this so that you can kind of see what I'm doing, but you could literally just make 3 empty frames. Okay. Looks like I might actually have turned this upside down. I don't know. I did too much topsy-turvy stuff. And so that's all you need to do is create a motion layer as part of your Fresco file. And then ideally you name this. This is just untitled right now, but I'm going to back out of it and let it sync, which will take just a second here. You can see it's done. And now that's going to show up in my Photoshop. So I'm going to come over to the old Photoshop here, and hang on. I know I need to get back to Where are my actual files? I had to clear out my history, and then I was just in an empty thing. Okay.
Sorry,
Coming back.
there's some dinosaur singing puns. Is Mesozoic soprano anything?
Oh, it should be.
Mezzo soprano, Mesozoic. Yes, there's a root word in here somewhere that is useful.
Okay, so anything you create in Fresco gets synced to Photoshop essentially immediately. I have fast internet, so it may take a minute for you,
Whoa.
but it'll come over here as
Humble
a
brag.
PSD-C. Yeah, I'm just stating, for full disclosure, if yours takes longer, then sorry. So
Kansas has good internet. I don't know what to tell you.
I was one of the first people in the country to get Google Fiber, but that was years ago. So you can see my motion layer here, okay? And if you look over here, it is a smart object, right? So if we open that up, now I have 1, 2, 3. I did manage to get these upside down just because I was doing some flip-flops with my my iPad over there, but you get the idea. You get all of your layers in here. And so let me grab the skater export is much much shorter, so I think that will be a much better thing. Let me here we go. So I'm gonna open that skater MOV just right here in Photoshop. So you'll want to export whatever you're doing. Export with if you have an alpha channel, just make sure you export with alpha. So in this case, I would have if I were exporting this dinosaur, I would, let's get that render queue down here. I would probably just do high quality with alpha, okay? And then just, this is the file that I'd be bringing in.
Right. Because people are not aware, alpha being the fourth heat of pixels, whether they're on or off, pretty useful.
So then I have a video file open here in Photoshop, which you can do, but that's not what we want today. We want to turn this video into a bunch of frames as individual layers. And there's one little technique to do that. In your timeline panel in Photoshop. And if you don't have that, go to Window,
one secret
Timeline.
That Photoshop hates.
Yeah. So it should open up your timeline when you import a video file, but just in case, it's right there. And it's this little hamburger menu right here in the timeline panel. Convert frames, flatten frames into clips. That is the little secret sauce that's going to do this for you. There we go. And again, as we said last week, already this is pretty cool, and I'm probably going to take advantage of this for some kind of neat thing in the future. Just haven't decided what yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little video clip group because we don't need that anymore. Yep, you can just make that go away. And then these frames are actually going to be in the opposite order from what I want right now. So I'm just going to shift select all of them and then go up to Layer, Arrange, Reverse. And now they're in the correct order. I found the easiest way to bring this over, because remember, right now we're in this skater video file still in Photoshop, and we want to bring that over into our motion layer. Okay, I found the easiest way to do that is just to quickly group these, which I'm going to hit Control G, and then you can just drag this right over into your other file. And if you hold Shift, it will center that when you let go. There we go. Let's go ahead and just delete that other stuff because that was just kind of there as a placeholder, and I'll ungroup those. And then now if I save this, it's saved into my Fresco file that I had created. So to go back to Fresco, I just need to save this and close out of it here in Photoshop. And I can go ahead and save or cancel out of this skater thing, and you can see it's synced back. And so now would be the time that we go back to the iPad and start having painting fun. I see it's synced back over here, so I can do a little more of that if we want here, just to get into that. But again, if folks have questions or want to see anything specific, just say so, and we'll do it. Apparently, there we go. So here's that thing I just created. You can see it's the most recent document there. And I just need to kind of come up. And by default, it's going to have the onion skin on because it assumes that if you're animating in here, you're wanting to see onion skin, which lets you see previous or next frames. I'm just going to turn that off because in this case, I'm going to be just kind of painting under this guy. And so I think I remembered, yep, it says one extra frame. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So I'm at an even 30. And let's go ahead and, you know what, since we're doing this, let's paint this background. I'll go ahead and crank this up, and let's pick one of our lovely colors here. Get all your colors from all of your libraries right here in Fresco, which I like, and we can just paint something like this for our background, okay? So there's one frame. Let's do frame 2 here. And frame 3. You see I'm doing kind of similar stuff for all of them, but trying to give them a little bit of variety too. And then I might like create a frame that's going to go underneath this. You can just hold things. Maybe go ahead and paint bucket that with a different blue. We'll fill that up. And we should, oh, that one was white underneath. Let me redo that one, sorry. Do one more here with our darker blue color. And remember, I have 30 frames. So even if I only paint 3 frames of this, that means it's going to loop forever cleanly on my 30 frame thing. So on a 30 frame animation, I could do 30 frames or 10 or 3 or 5 or 6, and any of those is going to work to create a perfect loop. And I really am a big fan of taking advantage of that.
Umacorn has a real question from a real person.
Okay.
Question about pixel effects. What would be the best way to go about that? So yeah, if we're talking about like, you know, like that kind of 8-bit kind of look or kind of hard edge pixel art, those types of things. Yeah, I assume I can tackle some of that.
Yeah, because I definitely haven't tried to do anything like that here in Fresco. I don't feel like it's set up for that sort of precision necessarily. It's meant to be very organic.
Unless you can create like a 64 by 64 very tiny canvas, right? And
then which I haven't tried.
Using a tiny pencil. Let's go into Evan's screen.
Okay, go ahead. Maybe I'll just keep painting this guy while you chat for a second.
You have a fun time painting over there. So I tend to, inside of After Effects anyway, do this stuff with like with a few tools. One is the mosaic tool or the mosaic effect, and the other being the posterize. So posterize is going to limit the number of levels that we've got, and then mosaic is going to clamp down the kind of visual space that's available to us. So let's say here real quick, if I know I want these to be squares, then they need to be some derivation of the actual ratio of the width and height of our situation here, which I think is 9 by 16. No, maybe it's 16 by 9. Ponderances. No, there it is. That's doing it. Boop. So the odd thing, very odd thing, you put posterize in the wrong order. Anyway, so we've got this thing set up as 9 by 16, and we've got all these like mid-tone things that might not actually fit. So you might put this into sharp colors.
Those tones are totally mid, Evan.
I know, some pretty mid tones. You can posterize this down to sort of the applicable number of actual bits per channel that would make this kind of work. One of the hard things about this way of working is that it's not intentional. So let me just try to give you a little example here.
Now that you're doing that, I have this might be more labor intensive than I'm actually going to do, but it'd be interesting. Like one of the things, my workflow that I've been showing you is essentially create something in After Effects, knowing that you're going to be working, the final look later.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you could create like a mosaic thing like that and then lay out a grid for yourself and actually like, I mean, it'd be a lot, but hand painting those pixels in Fresco would be a pretty interesting look of that like blocky
Yeah. And it's
vibe that you had going.
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go like we're going to use the name of our hit podcast, Kyle.
No, this is just a random name that you made up right now.
Yeah, I made it up just on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. We're going to apply some stuff to this. So in the end, I want to mosaicize a lot of this. So we're going to put the mosaic on top of this clunk. And remember, it's got to be some derivation of 16 by 9.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not totally sure what, so I'm going to put a slider control on top of this. And I'm actually going to interlink our mosaic with the slider control so that the horizontal blocks are 16 times whatever that slider control is.
Probably easier to just do this in a square comp so you don't have to do two separate ones. But
that's not how I think.
Okay.
That's not how I do it.
Got to be the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things I really like about this is that it allows you to do this kind of like pixelated dissolve.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we do like 10, something like that. So we got our creatures and creatives. It's pretty flat. But remember, anything that we put on top into this is going to get sort of transmitted down. So let's put a ramp on it here. So we're going to throw the gradient ramp onto here. And remember, we're trying to make like a old-time video game type of thing, right?
Speak for yourself.
Right, sorry. Sorry, a normal contemporary video game type thing.
Yes, exactly. I believe, sorry to everyone who is now being bombarded with our silliness on the main feed. Well, here we are.
Them's the breaks.
Yep.
You roll the dice, you take the breaks. Now, Umcor's saying, what if it's really colorful? Well, let's try that. Let's add more colors than we might not otherwise use, using Colorama to get a rainbow. To get a rainbow of colors, all the colors in the rainbow like this. There we go. So there we go. We got our colors coming across. So the mosaic's sharp color right here is a big kind of part that is kind of doing a lot of the work. Now, the big thing it's doing, though, is really destroying a lot of those kind of mid-range values that end up on the anti-aliasing spot. So let's stop doing that, and I'm going to just take our layer quality way down, right? So that's not sort of an issue. If you were going to be working in here, let's take the mosaic away, and we can kind of enjoy those kind of edges in here. You can see that those are getting those crunchitized edges on the creatures and creatives of this thing, which could be kind of helpful. Actually, let's remove the colorama too, because I know it's going to be doing some crunchitizing as well. So here's the anti-aliased edge. Here is the pixelated edge. Doot, 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 doot. Kind of like that. So if you want to get rid of those edge values, that's how you make them strong value. Or like really, really binary. But I am going to kind of leave it a little bit like this. I'm going to then put a bevel on top of this. So let's bevel the alpha of the thing a little bit so that we can get some of those edge bits coming in, which I think is looking pretty nice. I might change our output cycle on this. Let's start with maybe...
This is getting very 1993 here, very quickly.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
So I like the solarizes a little bit. Here we go. Bam, ba, ba, ba.
Wade asks, what is Creatures and Creatives? It's only the best RPG podcast ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Available wherever podcasts are podded.
Kind of embarrassing not to know about it, if you ask me. No, very few people know of this thing.
Well, Wade might also be doing us a favor and asking, like, gosh, what is that?
Yeah, trying to pimp us into talking about this thing. Anyway, so I'm trying to like add in some like fiery kind of stuff
Yeah,
here.
you're getting there.
Now, the other thing that can really help, right, is that we're getting these very kind of solid stuff. And we'll say that like pixely art was not intended to be observed as blocks, right? It's meant to be put into CRT monitors, and that is how it blends the pixels together to make smooth gradients, which is why it kind of looks the way it is. That's why a key thing that you probably want to throw in here is like a noise HLS that is actually going to mess with the hue, lightness, and saturation a little bit, just so that there's a little bit more of something going on down in the dither zones, as we would call them.
Man, we need to hang on. Dither zones is a great term.
Welcome to the dither zone.
Yeah.
That I don't remember what a zither sounds like, so meow 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 meow.
That's canon now.
Sorry, that
unfortunately.
was a sitar. Is a zither?
I want to say a zither is sort of like a more like a small, like flat harp situation that you play with little.
Oh.
That's a dulcimer. You know what? We're gonna take another moment where we pause the show and make sure that we know what we're talking about. I was right.
Yeah.
100% right.
Okay, perfect. Pew, 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 pew. Dither
Kind of like a tabletop harp, more or less.
The table harp. Okay, so let's come into the colorama. Let's actually, I'm just going to get this phase shifting. Bam, 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 bam.
But that needs to be 8-bit music. Mm-hmm. Well, this makes me want to make like an 8-bit Creatures and Creatives intro, like it's a video game from the early 90s or something.
Yeah. So anyway, I think you all get the idea of what's going on here. So the main thing, though, is you want to sort of create the art and then clamp the values. So that's why we end up with things like the posterize getting kind of thrown in here. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe people aren't totally aware of kind of like how the posterize sort of works. So here it is down at a 2. Like it's at that's 2 levels per channel. 2 on the red, 2 on the green, 2 on the blue, right? So that is going to 2 times 2 times 2 mm-hmm. channels. Which actually nets us 8 colors, right? 2 times 2 times 2. That means, well, actually, that's probably not the best way to think about it because it's all on or off. If everything is on, then it's white. If everything is off, then it's black. That's 2 colors. Anyway, we're not going to go through all of them, but the point is, if you put this at 4, you're not getting 4 colors, you're getting 4 bits worth of colors. So if you put this down at 8, that's going to be a lot more accurate to what you're looking for. So now you know. Now you know. So yeah, that's how you can sort of convert artwork. You make it in the fullest version of the thing you want to do, and then you degrade it using mosaics and posterizes and stuff like that. Now, all of that to say, what if Kyle, you don't like working that way?
What if Kyle?
What if Kyle? Nobody's asking what if Kyle. Okay, so
there's a reason for that.
What if Kyle? So here I've created just a 64 by 64 pixel thing. Mm-hmm. And we're going to put a question mark out here. This is the what if Kyle alarm that comes up every so often as it does. This is when Kyle has spotted an interloper or something. So we get this. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to make this thing three-dimensional.
Yeah, you better believe it.
And let's see, we're gonna go.
Can it revolve?
Yeah, that's
like
what
Clippy?
I'm thinking. Yeah, we are flying toasters. This bad boy.
Boy, we've gotten pretty far off topic here, but that's okay because this is one of our chill, alternate week pirate feeds. So you never know what might happen here. Look, this is a callback to the extreme camera angle from a few minutes ago, though.
Yeah, this is looking pretty extreme. Yeah, things are looking pretty extreme, I would say. What am I thinking here? This is
You tell me.
Why is math so hard some days, you know? Okay, that's what I want to do. Now I want to kind of get this thing into the middle center. And it's just like, why is this thing so large? Oh, yeah, because that's how it goes when you're working with smaller numbers.
You
All
know,
right.
you could just hit Control Alt Home and center up that anchor point, but you do you.
Command Control Alt Home.
Well, you're on a Mac, so
Yeah, that's true.
transpose your brain.
Ah!
Command Option Home, I believe, should be your equivalent.
Evan immediately gets a nosebleed. All right, so here we go. We've got our revolving question mark, right? And
Question mark overbite, as it has been now deemed.
perfect. Okay, so let's just go like time times 60 or something, right?
Okay, yeah. There we go.
So, what if, Kyle? Now, our final exports for this stuff is going to be like 1920 by 1080.
Uh-huh.
And if we bring our what if Kyle out here, stretch it up. That's
Yes.
not what we. That's gross, right? That's nasty.
Oh, I love it.
Instead, we want to. This is when we want to use that
The
sample.
one time that you're going to use this.
This is that one time that you're going to use this. So you can see as we cycle through the quality, this is linear, this is cubic, this is none. Linear, cubic, none. And this has given us that sweet, sweet pixel art that we crave from this. But remember, it's still nice and pixelated up here, so we can still apply like a bunch of effects and stuff to it if you want to.
Can you put that colorama on there? Because I feel like this needs a little pizzazz.
Pizzazzed.
Yes. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Now I'm going to come into the modify and I'm going to turn off modify alpha just so we can keep. We may have dithered a lot of the channels, but we're not dithering around when it comes to the
We're
alpha.
back in the dither zone.
I'm going to assume that's how it dithers, a zither.
I see Anda has just shown up, and I think that the daylight savings time that happened a couple weeks ago apparently doesn't apply everywhere equally.
Okay.
Yeah, so just FYI for all of our international viewers, I guess you have to do a little bit of math to even watch the show, about which I apologize, but I don't control the world's time zones.
Yet.
Yeah, yet.
So we've not been given
But
that.
but what if Kyle?
Yeah, what if Kyle? Okay, one thing I wanted to do with this was, okay, so the fill color is white, yes. Let's make sure that the side colors are distinct so they stop blending into each other. So let's animate side color ergaba, and let's just go ahead and just give us a nice 50% gray. There we go. And I put a little light in the scene, but it's not really doing it for me. So at least now we have the kind of separation of those things. So here we go. Ah, yes, art, I give you. Now you can also still make this thing. It doesn't respect if you collapse its transformations. But let's go in here. Yeah, so it's collapsed in here. I don't know how. Like if you collapse its transformations, you kind of lose that sharpness. That we wanted, which is unfortunate. But you know, what are you gonna do, folks?
Evan, I'm hearing from multiple sources that apparently, sort of generally across Europe is how I'm interpreting this, that they do their time change at the end of March. So I think there's about 2 weeks here where you have sort of this weird off time, and then they'll be back to normal. So just in time for you to think that this is when you're supposed to show up for the show. It will change back, and then your new right will be wrong.
Exactly. That's the perfect way for all of this stuff to come together.
Yeah. In the meantime, this has just gone truly special.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so I want to go new adjustment layer, find edges. Beep beep boop bop boop bop boop beep 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 boo.
In the meantime, one thing I would really love to be able to do is like bring layers from one Fresco file into another one, and I
Okay.
could like have my skater guy jump over the dinosaur, but I don't think that there's any way to do that,
Hmm.
unfortunately. I could probably use Photoshop to do exactly that.
Yeah, that's
I could
you,
use
you can
Photoshop
just
to
drag them
open
in.
multiple Fresco documents and drag them into one another. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Sorry, I was really enjoying this find edges.
Hmm. Yeah, you should.
As well you should. I'll treat myself to a little find edges. So anyway, Umacorn, was that helpful about pixel art? I was like, what were
I
we
think it
talking?
was.
What were we talking
Yeah.
about?
You got there. You got there.
So you can make things tiny, stretch them up, and then you can enjoy reducing the quality with the quality switch. You
Mhm.
can use the mosaic, and that will help sort of crunchitize the things that you want to crunchitize. Really good pixel art, like if we're talking about what was that thing like the Super Bros or I'm trying to remember, like they have there's a very distinctive style where you pretty much want to be drawing all of the frames in Photoshop if you really want to be um, doing that stuff. Like
Mhm.
there's almost no way to get around the kind of specificity required because one pixel left or right is really going to mess that stuff up. I wonder. Oh, let me hold on, Kyle. We're gonna go to your screen. You do something for a minute while I try to
Okay.
find some file.
Yeah, I'm doing some amazing stuff. Oh, it looks like we're back on my iPad. Let me give you my Photoshop because I forgot how majestic this was when I sort of baked out the frames from the T-Rex.
Ooh.
So here's my T-Rex animation. I was going to look at combining these real
Hmm.
quick here, but I just love, and just to show people one more time, in the timeline panel, convert frames, flatten frames into clips. Boop. And the way that this works out with the dinosaur when it creates all these frames is just amazing.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that's very easy to parse.
So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab about 30 frames here. It looks like about that. And I am going to bring those into this, which I didn't show you. But so the thing I had been working on in Fresco, I did a little bit more while Evan was working, and then I opened it back up in Photoshop here. And so now I have it over here. And let's get rid of these. So I think, yeah, using Photoshop as the way you can kind of like hack together your Fresco bits is an interesting thing. I would love to cut off the top of all of these, but I don't know. I don't know if there's an easy, quick way to do that. um, I do need to reverse these real quick. I know we're well over time, but
Yeah, that's true.
this is whatever we want. Give me just one second here. I bet I could just create like a very quick mask. Let me trim up just a little bit more here, and then I could just apply that to each of these. Yep, just by alt dragging. This won't take very long. Yeah, this is going to be worth the payoff here when this skateboarder jumps over these dinosaurs.
Mm.
So you people are just going to have to wait.
And Umacorn's saying that they're going to create some pixelated overlays for streaming, which is a lot of fun.
Love it.
I always recommend so the mosaic effect is really useful. Just pay attention to the kind of modification of the alpha that can happen sometimes with that. So the sharp colors are going to knock that down, depending on whether or not, especially when it comes to overlay graphics, that they're going to ride above
Hmm.
stuff. Anyway, the pixelated stuff is good, but really harsh alpha changes are not always what we desire when we're doing stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
I find if let's say we make like pixelated fire, which is a lot of fun type of thing to do. If people want to see more of that stuff, there was the Yule log
Hmm.
the Adobe Yule log from this year, I did one that was very much Windows 95 inspired. So there's a lot of like pixelated fire, pixelated candy canes, a lot of things of that ilk. So you want to try that, give that a whirl. I think I talk a bit through like using fractal noises to create fire and then pixelating that down. So that could be hopefully inspirational and useful.
Great time filling also, by the way.
Thank you.
All right,
Anda's talking about using a little chromatic aberration just before mosaics. That it's, I think any work that you can do kind of procedurally on like the full version of thing, and then if you can get a reliable way to knock it down to the final look, that is gonna serve you well. Oh boy, this is.
I feel like this is gonna be perfect. So let me close this and let it sync real quick, and then I'll open this back up in Fresco. Okay. It's the dinosaur definitely isn't going to link or loop perfectly, but I think that this is going to be pretty sweet nonetheless. If I can figure out where I put my Apple Pencil.
Could be anywhere. And to all the good people on the Adobe Live main feed tuning in with us. I'm Evan. He's Kyle. This is the Motion Design Hotline.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I like
this right here is the Motion Design Hotline.
This is what it's all about, folks. Yeah, we turn your motion design problems into content like this. And if you have any motion design trubs, get them at us. You could use the form. There's the form where you can submit stuff. But you can find Kyle at Kylosaurus Rex, his namesake. The dinosaur
how appropriate.
Yeah. You can find me at EC Abrams talking about this stuff. Get at us anytime with your quandaries. What are we doing next week, Kyle? We should probably tell the people about that.
Oh, what are we doing next week? We've, as you saw today, sometimes we just need another pair of hands to help things run a little more smoothly around here.
True.
And we came up with arguably the worst possible solution to that.
Yeah, it's more of ourselves. So we're going to be looking at visual effects cloning techniques through various levels of intensity and difficulty. So we'll have a few examples for you to do and try. So hopefully we're going to try to keep it in the realm of things that you can do yourself, right? So
some of them even in, I think we're going to try to do one directly in Express.
Yeah. So it'll be, we're going to really try to keep the difficulty something that people can do at home. No motion control cameras required. No creating 3D models of your own body type of deal. This is going to be raw footage, visual effects.
No judgment if you're into that.
Sure. Yeah. Photo scan yourself, etc. The problem is that if you needed to photo scan yourself, you still kind of need a second person to walk around you with a camera, right? Unless you're like somehow getting all of the angles that you require, as you get your armpits and undercarriages with your scans. But people have undercarriages. I know people. I know human body. So that's gonna be a good time. I think it's gonna be fun. So we're gonna be filming some of that stuff this week and hopefully delivering it to you in a nice way on Pranksgiving Day, April 1st. I'm anti-prank, so that's why we're doing clones. I have a strong anti-prank lifestyle.
Well, it should be said, if you have any particular requests or questions about those kinds of techniques, hit us with them, ideally sooner rather than later, so that we can actually incorporate that into the show.
Oh, yeah, that would be wise, for sure. But until then, Kyle, I guess we better sign off, get on with our lives. Sherbert's looking at me really funny that he wants food.
I'm having fun watching this dinosaur loop. It's still playing on my screen.
It's pretty nice. That's a good loop. That's what Kyle's screen looks like. Kyle, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, good people of the chat and the YouTube and the Behance, to see you there. So we'll see you all next time. Go to motiondesignhotline.com if you want to see all of our back catalog of things. Buy a hat, support the show.
And get project files.
Get your project files. But we will see you next week on the Motion Design Hotline. So until then, stay creative, be kind to each other, and we'll see you around the internet. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Wink.